Imagine speaking a language that feels too small for your thoughts. Imagine wanting to describe a feeling so deep, so strange, so new, but the word simply does not exist. What would you do? Would you stay silent? Or would you create the word yourself? 400 years ago, one man faced this quiet problem again and again. The English language was growing, but it was still young. It did not yet have words for certain emotions, certain ideas, certain shades of human experience. And instead of accepting that limitation, this man began to stretch the language. He bent it. He reshaped it. He invented words that had never been spoken before. Today, we use many of those words without even thinking. We say them in conversations. We write them in messages. We hear them in films and classrooms. The words feel ordinary now. But once, they were brand new. The man who created them was William Shakespeare. When Shakespeare was born in 1564 in the small town of Stratford-upon-Avon, English was not the global language it is today. It was still changing. Still forming. Latin and French influenced it. Spelling was not fixed. Grammar rules were flexible. It was a language in motion. Shakespeare grew up in a world without electricity, without microphones, without printed dictionaries in every home. Books were precious. Education was limited. But language was alive. People loved stories. They loved plays. They loved poetry. As a boy, Shakespeare studied Latin at school. He read classical writers. He learned how words could carry rhythm and power. But he also listened carefully to the people around him. He listened to merchants in the market. To travelers. To workers. To ordinary conversations. He absorbed language the way dry earth absorbs rain. Later, when he moved to London, the city was loud and crowded. It was full of trade, politics, gossip, ambition, and theater. Theaters were becoming popular. Crowds gathered to watch stories about kings, lovers, murderers, ghosts, and fools. The audience was not quiet or polite. They reacted loudly. They demanded excitement. They wanted to feel something. And Shakespeare understood something important. If he wanted his audience to feel deeply, he needed the right words. But sometimes, the right word did not exist. So he made it. Think about the word lonely. Today, it feels simple. Clear. Almost soft. But before Shakespeare used it in his writing, it was not common in English. The idea of being alone existed, of course. But lonely carried something different. It carried emotion. It carried the ache of isolation. Or consider the word generous. We use it easily now. A generous friend. A generous gift. But once, that word was new on the English stage. He used words like excitement, fashionable, manager, addiction. Words that feel completely normal today. Words you may have already used this week. It is hard to imagine English without them. How did he do it? Sometimes, Shakespeare changed a noun into a verb. Sometimes, he added a prefix or a suffix to create something new. Sometimes, he combined two words. And sometimes, he simply trusted his instinct. If the word sounded right, if it carried the right rhythm, he allowed it to live. Not every new word survived. Language can be strict. It accepts some inventions and rejects others. But many of his creations stayed. They were repeated by actors. Printed in books. Shared across generations. There is something brave about that. To create a new word is to risk being misunderstood. It is to risk confusion. It is to risk criticism. And Shakespeare was criticized. Some people believed he was too playful with language. Too experimental. Too bold. But he kept writing. In plays like Hamlet, Macbeth, Romeo and Juliet, and A Midsummer Night's Dream, he explored ambition, jealousy, love, betrayal, grief, hope. These emotions were not new. Human beings had always felt them. But Shakespeare found new ways to express them. When Macbeth speaks about ambition burning inside him, we feel the tension of desire and fear mixed together. When Romeo describes love, it is no longer just a word. It becomes something urgent and dangerous. When Hamlet questions existence itself, asking, to be or not to be, he gives voice to doubt in a way that still feels modern. He did not simply write stories. He expanded emotional vocabulary. And that is powerful. Language shapes thought. The more words we have, the more precisely we can understand our own feelings. Without the right word, emotions can feel confusing. Undefined. Heavy. With the right word, something changes. The feeling becomes clearer. Lighter. Manageable. In many ways, Shakespeare gave English speakers new tools for thinking. But his success was not immediate. When he first arrived in London, he was not famous. He worked in theaters. He learned slowly. He observed actors. He listened to the rhythm of speech on stage. He understood that words must sound natural when spoken aloud. That is another reason his new words survived. They were not only clever on paper. They felt alive when spoken. Imagine sitting in the Globe Theatre. The roof open to the sky. The crowd noisy and restless. And suddenly, you hear a word you have never heard before. It sounds strange for a moment. But then, in the context of the story, it makes sense. It feels right. You repeat it later. Your friends repeat it. Slowly, the strange word becomes familiar. This is how language grows. Not in silence. But in use. Shakespeare wrote nearly 40 plays and more than 150 sonnets. Across those thousands of lines, he experimented constantly. Some words he borrowed. Some he reshaped. Some he invented completely. He was not trying to become the man who created new English words. He was trying to express human experience as truthfully as possible. The inventions were a result of that desire. And perhaps that is the real lesson. When you care deeply about expressing something clearly, you become creative. You search for better words. You try new structures. You become flexible. Maybe right now, as you learn English, there are moments when you feel limited. You know what you want to say in your own language. But in English, the sentence feels incomplete. The vocabulary feels small. It can be frustrating. But remember this, even English itself was once small. Even it needed someone to stretch it. Shakespeare did not wait for permission to use language boldly. He trusted that communication is alive. That it can grow. And because he trusted that, millions of people today have a richer vocabulary. We often think of great achievements as loud and dramatic. But Shakespeare's revolution was quiet. It happened through ink on paper. Through actors' voices. Through audiences repeating new sounds. Word by word. And those words are still with us. The next time you say lonely, or generous, or excitement, you are touching something that was once new. Once uncertain. Once a risk. A single human being expanded a language spoken by millions. And it began with the courage to say something in a way no one had said before. As Shakespeare grew older, his fame increased, but he never stopped experimenting with language. Success did not make him cautious. It made him braver. He continued to test the limits of English, shaping phrases that would outlive him by centuries. Many of the expressions we use today also come from his pen. Phrases like, break the ice, wild goose chase, heart of gold, and, in a pickle. These are not just random combinations of words. They are images. They create pictures in the mind. And that is why they survived. Shakespeare understood something essential: people remember what they can see and feel. A heart of gold is stronger than simply saying someone is kind. A wild goose chase feels more frustrating than just saying a search was useless. His language was visual, emotional, memorable. When he eventually returned to Stratford, he was no longer the young man searching for opportunity. He had earned financial success. He had written works that filled theaters again and again. But perhaps his greatest achievement was invisible. He had helped shape the future of English itself. When he died in 1616, he could not have known that centuries later, students around the world would still study his lines. He could not have imagined that English would become a global language spoken across continents. And yet, his fingerprints are everywhere within it. Today, every time someone learns English, they are learning a language that Shakespeare helped expand. Every time a student discovers a new word and feels that small spark of understanding, they are participating in the same process of growth. Language is never finished. It is always becoming. And here is something important to remember: Shakespeare was not born with a special dictionary in his mind. He was not given permission to change English. He was simply curious, attentive, willing to play with words, willing to risk sounding different. That same possibility exists for you. Maybe you are not inventing new English words. But every time you learn one, you expand your world a little more. Every time you practice speaking, even if your voice feels uncertain, you are shaping the language inside you. Slowly, steadily, your vocabulary grows. Your confidence grows with it. At first, new words can feel strange, just as Shakespeare's inventions once did. But the more you use them, the more natural they become. What feels difficult today may feel effortless one day. A language is built word by word. So is confidence. Shakespeare changed English because he believed it could hold more. And it did. You may feel that your English is still small, still developing. That is not weakness. That is growth in progress. Keep reading. Keep listening. Keep speaking. Each new word you understand is another door opening. 400 years ago, one writer expanded a language. Today, you expand your own future every time you learn a new one. And that is how language, and people, truly grow.